the reason I invited you on, Sean, is because last week when I was talking to people, I was talking to a Black woman last week, and she was talking about being a journalist and like connecting to different people. And because we're dealing with, these issues with the coronavirus, somebody, I think it was Josh, asked if I could talk to somebody, or they said that it would be interesting to talk to somebody who was like impacted because of their race by the coronavirus.
So I moved to Jersey, and what I do before the whole shutdown began was I take the A train down in from Penn Station or Port Authority. And this was like probably early March, before when the whole country started getting sensitive to the whole movement and the whole seriousness of the virus. And when that happened, you could sense this heightened tension in the subways. Any type of coughs, people started trying to inch away from the coughing person. But as I have my podcast in, I'm listening to I have my daily commute in. I'm listening to my podcast. I'm just minding my own business, just leaning against the door, and then all of a sudden, like an old white guy comes up to me and starts yelling at me. So I'm trying to figure out what's happening here. I pick up my earbuds, and he starts saying, things to the effect of "Stop fucking eating bats." Excuse my French. And he started coronavirus, and he kept on telling me stop eating bats. And in that moment, I just
that's so wild.
It is. I mean, so much. I think the first initial reaction to me was, I can't believe this is actually happening to me. I was like,
right,
is this actually happening to me? And he kept on being agitated, and keep on yelling at me. It's like, get out of here, get out of here. And I'm trying to, and so from that moment, I try to think about, how do I react to this? I can't believe this is actually happening to me. Fortunately, there were a lot of good people that were around me, just random strangers that I've never met before. And at the next stop, I think it was like on 14th Street or something like that, they told the guy to get out of this train, collectively. They said, get out of this train, get out of this train, get out of this train. And the guy thankfully got off before the situation got escalated even more. And, in that moment of kindness, I kind of thought to myself, okay, this is the end. Thankfully, nothing worse happened. And so I started processing, I can't believe this actually happened to me.
Right.
I get off at Canal because I work in Tribeca. And the first thing I did was I called my wife at that point. And I said, you're not going to believe what actually happened to me. And so, on my walk to the building, I'm still processing what happened. Right. It's like, first of all, I think, human instinct that goes through my head was for me to actually think about, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say... Right. You realize I'm not Chinese here, right? Or you realize that... First of all, I'm not from Wuhan, you ignorant asshole.
Right.
That was my first reaction. I was getting angry about it. I can't believe this ignorant thing happened to me. But then, I don't know how much of your audience has a faith background or not. But for me, I mean, fortunately, I started thinking about a message that my pastor gave me the previous day, the Sunday. And for me, I took it deeply personally. And what it was about is to say, in the moment of chaos, just take a deep breath and say, Abba, I belong to you. Which means, Abba means Father.
Father, yeah.
Father, I belong to you. And the whole idea is regardless of who I am, regardless of how I look, regardless of what I do existentially in this universe, that no matter what, I'm a child of God in his eyes equally, and I'm loved by him no matter what. And that meditation and that moment of continuous repetition of saying, I belong to you, I belong to you, I belong to you, actually helped me tremendously soothe myself down.
Right.
Um, and it's funny me with an Asian background. I mean, I don't have much of an experience with explicit racism, and this was the first time that I actually encountered like a direct racism
Oh
based on
yeah.
my outward appearance. The funny thing about this is the people, as I started processing this more, the people that helped me were all black,
Say it
all
again.
black.
Can you say that
The,
again, Sean?
the people that helped me out in that subway, they were all black,
I tell you, boy.
and it got me thinking, man, you know, out of all the races out there, right? Black Americans probably have the most explicit amount or implicit amount of racism that have been affected. And for them to outwardly be able to support someone who's not looking like themselves, but for them to be able to just share that moment of solidarity saying, it doesn't matter who you look like, we are all equal, regardless of what our faith, that really warmed me a lot. And so, to your question of how I'm processing it, I don't look at it as a hurtful event, so to speak. I look at it as in saying, there's a bad apple, but there's so much goodness in this society through this epidemic or this pandemic that we're going through.
Right.
You think about the volunteers that have stepped up in this situation in New York City. You think about the thousands of retirees that are coming without any pay and thinking about how can I help this society? And that's not even, I don't care about what their faith is. It's just stepping up and saying, we are better than this.
Yeah.
We're going to get through this. So that's been my experience.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much for sharing. So just to like recap or like to re-say what you experienced, you were on the train going to work and a white man came up to you and started kind of like accosting you, saying to telling you to stop eating bats. And then at that moment a bunch of other like strangers, New Yorkers, crowded around you to kind of like really support and like protect you in that moment and told the guy to get off the train. After you got off, you were really like processing and like kind of like regretting partially, like as you processed it, like, man, I should have like approached this differently, but then also like reminded of like who you belong to and like some words that your pastor shared with you to help like ground you in the midst of like chaos where it felt like kind of crazy. And then also in reflection, you're realizing kind of the shared experience that you have, maybe as a minority or just as an individual now with like Black Americans experiencing like head on like obvious racism and trying to like process how you're kind of like have now this shared experience and seeing the ways that people come, like the humanity kind of out of this situation. Do you feel like you were aware of like kind of that shared experience before, or like the potential shared experience, or like did it like, can you talk more to like how kind of like it opens you up?
It's a good question. Honestly, I never felt something like that sense of solidarity before. I never felt the sense of a random acts of strangers just coming together to show goodness. And so that was my first experience, actually experiencing that. I do think that it's been an enlightening experience for me because of the fact that it affirms my belief that there's goodness in every one of us, regardless of who we are, for the most part. For the most part, there's always going to be
for the most part.
But when push comes to shove, and we're seeing this right now in this pandemic, is when push comes to shove, what makes society great, what makes our particular species so great is that we will try to figure out a solution collectively.
Yeah.
um, and try to get through any issues. And, you know, I'm sure the random strangers that were on that subway did not expect to have that kind of reaction. I'm
Right.
sure that they were just trying to get to work.
Right.
But for them to all of a sudden collectively determine this situation is not right. We need to do
Yeah.
something about this poor Asian guy who looks like he's scrawny and about to get beat up, right? Right? So, you know, I'm genuinely appreciative of them. You know, if I could, I wish I could turn back time and just introduce myself and just say to those individuals, thank you for helping me, right? Even though you didn't have, even though that's not part of your obligation.
Yeah.
But you know, helping people out, just random strangers, that was inspiring for me. And so regardless of whether or not that racism was a crappy experience for me, it did shed the light that there's so much goodness in society. I'm trying to make sure that in this time of pandemic that I'm trying to still count the blessings, right? Fortunately, I still have a job that allows me to remotely work from home. I
Right.
still, and you know, this time of pandemic has allowed me to, you know, make a daily routine with my son. We make breakfast together, and
That's
I'm
nice.
sure, yeah, I'm sure he's gonna hate it when school starts. But it's been awesome for me, like in that sense that I've been taking breaks coming downstairs, and playing with the kids, and it's something that if this pandemic didn't exist, that amount of connection would not have gotten better. I know your tagline is Street Connect, but I do think there's a sense of this pandemic that allows us to connect more to our close loved ones because of this pandemic,
Yeah.
that wouldn't otherwise existed.
For sure. For sure. I think it's been an interesting time of connection for me as well. Like I've spoken to like my siblings more.
Oh
My
yeah,
mom has had like an iPad for a long time, but we haven't really FaceTime. And like since this, we've been like FaceTime and working out together. I've
yep,
noticed so much more around about my children, you know what I
yep,
mean, by like just being home with them.
yep,
Um, because like you realize how much time I wasn't, because I thought that I spent a lot of time like with my family, but
yep,
now it's like that we're all here. It's like, wow, there's so much going on that has gone unnoticed,
yep,
um, because of how much time we spend outside of our home, you know?
yep. And what you're
Yeah.
left with, what do you have? You have time with your family, you have time at home. And so how do you make the best out of that? And that's kind of the approach that I've been trying to take, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you know, yes, it sucks. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm slowly losing my sanity day by day, right? I do need to get a haircut because I got like a Asian shaggy fro kind of growing up now. But you work with what you have.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting to try to think about like how, I don't know, like when will this be over? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like what are we gonna look like on the other side? How will we ever like establish a new normal? Because like it's not like they're gonna open up all the like cultural institutions and
yep,
whatever, and everybody's then just gonna go like straight back to school, straight back to
yeah,
work. You know what I mean? Because that will only bring more problems. So it's hard to
yeah,
imagine like what is life going to look like in a couple months. Um, I don't even know.
yeah.
Or
I mean,
like if we, I mean, it's like it's kind of like, yo, I can do this like not going outside or whatever for like
yeah,
2 weeks, 3 weeks. But if you're talking about like extending it till June, like when it's like
yeah,
fully in the summertime, it's like, how are people like, how are we going to do this? You know?
yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
And absolutely, I think you raise a very good point. The future is uncertain, right? And I think, for me at least, what it made me realize is there are so many things, the variable factors that's completely out of my control, right?
Yeah.
How you decide to internalize the fact that you can't control this situation is dependent on you. if you have a faith background, maybe it's for me, the way I think about it, I'm going back to faith again, but for me, it's for me to say social distancing does not mean spiritual distancing. And for me, it's gotten much more, how do I frame it? Enriched in terms of the fact that I have now to affirm the fact that these are events that are completely out of my control. And I have to be fully dependent on some existential factor outside of what I can control, right?
Yeah.
And there's no point in me trying to stress out about the fact that I don't know when this situation is going to end.
Yeah.
I can't determine when it's going to end.
Yeah. I think, thank you for that. I think, and I'm obviously like okay and great with like sharing like I mean our faith, whether you are part of the Christian faith or otherwise, like faith and how we hold like our beliefs really like impacts how we carry on our lives, you know?
Yep.
I think for me too, in the same way, I've been charged to really like think about what really like matters in this time. I think I thought like, oh, I'm gonna have all this free time, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
And then now it's kind of like, do any of these things matter at all? Like, and what
not.
really does matter? And honestly, it's been a little bit challenging for me to think about like what really matters. You know what I mean? To like reimagine. Like I know like staying connected to like people I love matters, staying connected to myself, staying connected to God. Like really, really matters. But then like when I think about like the projects that I wanted to do and like all the other stuff, I'm like, does any of this stuff matter at all? Like, let me launch this, let me do that. And it's like, yo, we're inside. And we may be inside for a long time. Like, I don't even know. Like, so it's kind of like, it's weird. It's definitely weird. I don't know what else to say about that, you know?
It definitely is weird, but I'll put it this way. It's also the fact that, look, for me, like, I did the stupid thing of checking my 401k balance the other day. And I said,
me and Khalid were just talking about that. We're like, ah!
And so I thought about, I told Hayoung exactly. I was like, yep, we lost a lot of money. And I thought about it, and I was like, but at the end of the day, if you kind of reshuffle this whole thing around, right? And if you're one of the unfortunate situations on a ventilator, on a lifeline, do you think you really would care about your 401k portfolio?
Right.
And so I kind of had to reshuffle that thought, right? And I said,
right,
no, it actually doesn't, right? What matters is being connected to the people that matter the most to me, right? To your pointer, right? What matters is making sure that I try to live today as if, like, I try to figure out what's most important to me. And I say, am I doing the things that are most important to me? And you're absolutely correct. Like, it's helped me prioritize what is important, right? And, you know, for me, I think the blessed thing is, like, my daughter, who's like a year and a half, she hated me before, and now she's slowly gained. And, you know, now she's at the point where I can put her to bed because she likes to hug me. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is awesome for me, right?
Wow.